Hello there, I'm the Biblical Translator, and today I wanted to talk to you about praise. How you feel when you get praise. I'm not good at taking praise at all. I kind of dismiss it and deflect it. And I was praised last week on a show that I'd done, so this is why I want to share with you this story. I've called it When We Are Entrusted with What Is Not Ours. Have you ever been in a situation where someone has praised you, but you have minimized the praise? A lot of Christians do that. They call it humility. You're praised for something that went well, a piece of work, a role you played, something you were part of, and almost immediately you feel the need to qualify it, to redirect the credit, to explain that you weren't really the source, that others did the heavy lifting, that without them nothing would have happened, and often that instinct is right because we give God the glory for great things he has done. Because much of what we do in life is not created by us from scratch. It is entrusted to us. We receive it, handle it, and pass it on. The Bible speaks to this situation directly, even though we don't always recognize it. Jesus tells a parable about servants who are entrusted with talents. The master goes away and leaves resources in their care. When he returns, he doesn't ask whether they invented it, what they were given. He asks what they did with it. That's the key question. Not did you create it, but were you faithful with it? That distinction matters in every area of our lives: work, leadership, parenting, creativity, ministry, responsibility of any kind. Stewardship sits between ownership and passivity. A steward does not claim what isn't theirs, but neither do they pretend that role doesn't matter, which is what I tend to do. You may or may not know that I am a DJ on Lovers Rock Radio and Gold Standard Radio on Fridays 7 till 9 and Saturdays 7 till 9. I do not promote it on this platform because what I play is considered secular music. But I mention it to explain the role of this story I'm telling you. I was applauded for a show I curated on Gold Standard Radio last week. And I played it down. I said if it wasn't for the singers, the producer, or the person who sent me the tracks, there would be no show to applaud. But I've since been reminded that in Genesis, humanity is placed in the garden. God creates it, but human beings are told to work it and take care of it. The flourishing of something they did not make is placed in their hands. That pattern repeats throughout the scriptures. Joseph doesn't own Egypt, but he is entrusted with it, survival. Moses doesn't create the law, but he is responsible for carrying it. The disciples don't produce the loaves, but they are the ones who distribute them. In each case, the work is not authored by them, but the outcome depends on how they handled what they've been given. That's what stewardship looks like. Some people are tempted to claim too much. They absorb praise that doesn't belong to them and forget the source. Scripture warns against that again and again, but there are also people like me who refuse responsibility altogether, to minimize the role I've played in selecting, curating, pacing, and educating. I tend to treat care, discernment, and faithfulness as if it's invisible or automatic. But I've been warned, the Bible doesn't support either extreme. Paul writes, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. Faithfulness assumes responsibility. It assumes that what you did with what you were given matters. Faithfulness is not about ego, it's about care. Care in how something is handled, care in how it's passed on, care in how it affects others. This is why praise can feel uncomfortable when you're trying to be truthful, because praise isn't always about origin. Often it's about outcome. And if you do want to listen to that show, you can either go on Mixcloud Lady Loy or Mixcloud Gold Standard Radio. People respond to what they experience, how something was presented, communicated, structured, or shared. They may not have the language for stewardship, but they recognize when something has been handled well. That recognition doesn't mean the source has been forgotten. It means the trust placed in the steward has been honoured. And I never thought of DJs being stewards. But in essence, this is what the Bible is saying. I was given music to take care of, to make sure I played it and represented it well. But I'd minimise that role. I won't in the future. John the Baptist gives us a helpful line here. He says, he must increase, but I must decrease. He doesn't deny his role, he clarifies it. He knows where he stands. That's not self-erasure or self-hatred. That's maturity. Knowing where you stand means you don't compete with the source. You don't disappear from the work either. Jesus says, whoever is faithful in little will be faithful in much. Faithfulness is revealed in small decisions, preparation, restraint, attention, honesty. These things don't draw attention to themselves, but they shape outcomes. And Scripture treats those things as morally significant. So let me remind you, my listeners, when praise comes, the question is not, how do I minimize this praise? But the question is, where does this praise belong? Gratitude is usually the right place. A simple thank you. Thank you for appreciating what I've done. That's what I should have said. Thank you. Thank you for appreciating how hard I worked to get it to sound the way I did. Gratitude for what is given, gratitude for the trust involved, gratitude for being allowed to handle something that mattered. This keeps the source central while acknowledging responsibility. Because to deny responsibility is not humility, which is what I thought it was. It's avoidance. And to claim ownership is not confidence, it's distortion. Stewardship lives in the middle. Jesus says, to whom much is given, much will be required. That applies not just to wealth or power, but to access, platforms, roles, and trust. If you've been given something to carry, whether it's work, people, ideas, or opportunities, how you carry it matters. You may not be the source, but you are accountable for what happens while it is in your care. And the scripture is clear. Faithfulness that is seen, even when it's quiet. Scriptural references woven from Matthew 25, 14 to 30, Genesis 2, 15, 1 Corinthians 4, 2, John 3, 30, Luke 12, 48, Luke 16, 10. So what I am suggesting is that when you are given praise, it is easy to feel modest, which is another word for calling it. We can call it modesty, we can call it shy, we can call it whatever we like, when we deflect what we're entitled to. And when I did that show, yes, I appreciate that it did sound really good. But I was thinking to myself, the producer who sent the tracks to me, if he didn't send me those tracks, I wouldn't have had a show to produce or curate. It didn't occur to me that the time I took to put those tracks together, and when you've got hundreds of tracks, to actually select tracks that go well sequentially, and to listen back and see whether or not it is something that is easy on the ears to the listeners, and to make sure there's not too many disruptions or you haven't made any mistakes. I didn't take all of that into account. So now I will value my role as a DJ. And yes, I appreciate that you might not want to listen to the shows, but I'm here to inform you and to translate the Bible for you and to give you my little words of wisdom as and when I can. So thank you for being with me, and thank you for supporting me, and thank you for listening. And I'll leave it here. Thank you. Bye-bye.